Well, hello and welcome to the e-commerce podcast with me, your host, Matt Edmondson. The e-commerce podcast is all about helping you to deliver e-commerce wow. And to help us do just that, I am chatting with today's very special guest, Tom Kulzer, who is the founder and CEO of AWeber, about how to grow your online business using email marketing strategies. But before Tom and I get into that, let me suggest a few other e-commerce podcast episodes that I think you're also going to enjoy listening to. Why not check out a recent episode with Dan Badai, The Secrets of Retaining Customers with Email Marketing, what a legend that guy is, and also check out How to Optimize Engagement Through Customer Lifestyle Marketing with Kath Pay. I still remember Kath Pay being in a very tropical location when we recorded that episode, so do check those out. You can find these and our entire archive of episodes on our website for free, ecommercepodcast.net. And on our website, you can also sign up to our emails newsletter, which I feel very good about given today's guest. And each week we will email you these links along with the notes and the transcript from today's conversation with Tom directly to your inbox, totally free. It's all good stuff. It's all totally amazing. Now, this episode is brought to you by the e-commerce cohort, which helps you deliver e-commerce wow to your customers. You know what? I've come across a bunch of folks who find e-commerce, it's a bit of an overwhelming topic, shall we say. You've got to keep up with the tech, which changes so fast. How do you do customer service when everybody's tastes and habits are changing all of the time? And to top it all off, you've got to stay on top of all the latest marketing techniques and ideas. So we talk about all of these things, obviously, on the e-commerce podcast. But for those of you in e-commerce, you should also check out ecommercecohort.com. It is a membership group for those who are in e-commerce, and it does guided monthly sprints that cycle through all the key areas of e-com. You'll keep up to date. You'll be working on the key areas of your e-commerce business, including your marketing and email marketing, like we're talking about today. So whether you are just starting out in e-commerce, or if, like me, you are a well-established e-commercer, I encourage you to get involved. Check it out, ecommercecohort.com. That's ecommercecohort.com. Now, before I get into today's conversation, I just want to read out the bio that's in front of me. Tom is the founder and CEO of AWeber, the leading email marketing platform and automation platform for small businesses, where he is actively involved in the company's strategic direction, growth, and evolution. Over the company's 24-year history, Tom has nurtured AWeber from a small startup to a robust organization that we've all heard of, we all know about, and has enabled over 1 million customers to grow their businesses, all without public or venture funding. Go, Tom. That's amazing. Tom, great to have you here on the e-commerce podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your, no doubt, insanely busy schedule to join us here today.
Thanks for having me on today, Matt. Looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. So for those, for the 4 people listening to the podcast that actually hasn't heard of AWeber, just tell us what is AWeber and what do you guys do?
Yeah, we're an email marketing platform. So think of us as the automation behind communicating with your subscribers. So when you publish an email newsletter, you log into AWeber to create that newsletter and send that content out. When you think about automation sequences that people talk about or automated follow-up, our platform is the one that enables you to do that. So when somebody clicks on an email or clicks on a link, you send a certain email, they open a message, they don't open a message, you send a different email, etc. So our platform is the one that enables small businesses around the world to be able to send those kind of communications out to the people that requested them.
Fantastic. Now, I'm kind of curious, where did the name AWeber come from? Because it's not... Well, it's not what I would have named an email company. Do you know what I mean? It's not a sort of top, unless I'm missing something.
Off the head?
Yeah.
So back in early 98, we were calling it the Automated Web Assistant. And this was before it launched. So now it's making more sense, eh?
Yeah.
So Automated web assistant is like a really long domain name, and that's just not particularly catchy. So it kind of got shortened, and it's like a web ass. No, bad website name. So it just kind of turned into AWeber. And historically, it's one of those things. It's like it begins with an A. It's short. It's catchy. It's unique. And it's just kind of a memorable thing when somebody hears it. We always capitalize the A and the W, but not the E, because it's not the assistant part. But yeah, no, it's just it was one of those kind of funny naming historical bits that we've hung
Yeah,
on to.
that's really funny how these things sort of come about, isn't it? And the story. So, yeah, how did you get started? How did AWeber get started? Did you just wake up one day and think, I'm going to help people conquer the world of email?
No, not at all. I was actually I was studying mechanical engineering in college, and I was selling this wireless modem. So this was back when we still had dial-up modems
Wow.
for connecting to the internet. So like wireless technology that you could
Yeah, yeah.
Velcro to the back of your laptop was the latest greatest thing. And I was selling this at computer shows, and I was basically a sales rep for it. And in the process, being a college student, I was kind of lazy. And actually selling things required follow-up. Like, I didn't just see them at the computer show and they instantly bought this expensive device and then paid for an expensive monthly service. They had more questions, or they weren't sold right away, and you had to kind of follow up with them. So I'd send these manual emails, and that's a lot of work. Hence the lazy college student aspect. I wrote a little program that would automatically send out the messages, because 90% of the messages that I sent were the same message
Mm.
to each of the different people, and I customized a little bit. Um, and yeah, so I wrote this, and I ended up sharing it with other salespeople around the country that were selling the same product. And my payment for that was, send me the messages that are working. I want to know what copy works, because that was not something I was particularly good at. So we shared them, and I would share them off to other people. And we all sold more as a result of both this automated email tool and sharing copy that
Hmm.
worked. So we had the right messaging. One thing led to another. I ended up leaving that company to focus on school. Somebody was telling me that was important, parents. And I stopped running the program that was sending out all the automated follow-ups for all these other people around the country. And they started coming to me saying, hey, I'll pay you for that thing that I was previously getting for free. And I was like, maybe there's a business here.
Maybe, just maybe.
And that turned into our automated web assistant that turned into AWeber. And many years later, here we are.
Wow. It's funny, isn't it, how when can I ask, when was it you wrote this first little program?
So it was like 97.
97. So in
And then
98, I wrote my first ever website. It was around
okay.
97, 98. And then
Uh-huh.
that sort of one thing led to another, and that I ended up writing an e-commerce site, and then that led to something else, and then that led to something, and then here I am today, right? And I find it fascinating, Tom, that you kind of, the amount of journeys that start off with, I was in college, or I was at uni, or I was young, had a lot of time on my hands, and I just played
Yep.
around with ... And 20 years later, here I am, ... Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of really fascinating story to me, and that seems to be yours, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. At the time, I was, single and racing bicycles, kind of on the amateur level. So if I was either not in school or not riding my bike, I was sitting in front of a computer, messing around with code, and just seeing what I could kind of hack away on. I was part of a number of different like kind of newsletters. I moderated a newsletter that basically took kind of entrepreneurial, just something that was always interesting to me. So I created this little ecosystem around me that was other entrepreneurs. So when I kind of launched AWeber to a larger group, I launched it to this group of entrepreneurs that were in other businesses, and I instantly had traction as a result of that, because they already knew who I was. Like,
Yeah.
I had some element of validation, even though I was very upfront in the fact that I was a college student. I was still figuring this out, but I had developed this thing that was really useful for a lot of people, and they instantly saw the value in that and became customers. So, and I think there's there's this path that happens for a lot of businesses that, um, just getting a little bit of traction in where you're actually adding value and solving your own problems, but solving other people's problems is
Yeah.
really, really, is really the point that you need to get. I think a lot of the media obsesses around entrepreneurs that raise money as like this level of
Mm.
success, and it's like I've never looked at that as a point of success. It's like, okay, I convinced a small board of people to give me a whole lot of money. That's very different than convincing a whole lot of businesses that the thing that you're selling is valuable and they want to give you money.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
two completely different dichotomies, and I think the press and the general public kind of romanticizes raising a whole bunch of money, which to me is just like a ticking time bomb, because eventually, if you don't have customers paying for whatever it is that you're selling,
Mm.
that money runs out
Yeah.
and you have to do some big changes, either raise more money, sell the company, fold, whatever, versus building a business and a company that kind of has legs and can
Mhm.
stand on its own 2 feet and continue to grow and perpetuate for as long as those customers find value in
Yeah.
what you're selling.
No, I agree. I think like you say, it's been overhyped, the whole raising finance thing, and it's got problems, right? It's not all glamorous. And I know, like with our e-commerce, we sold a big e-commerce business last year. I have another one still running. Both of those
Congrats.
companies, yeah, thanks. Both of those, right? I have a very simple philosophy in that whatever stock we have, we own. So I don't buy stock on invoice. I don't do that. I prepay for everything. If that, I mean, the site we have now, we
Mhm.
manufacture, so we definitely got to pay for everything. But before, when we had the beauty site, everything on our shelves we owned. And so when you, in effect, hit those problems, when there was downturns, I didn't have to concern myself with trying to scramble to find the cash to pay the invoices as well
Right.
as payroll. And there's something to be said, certainly from my point of view, about, I just call it organic growth. The ability just to go out, find some more customers, serve those customers, use the profits from that, and go and
Mhm.
find more customers, right? So it sounds like that's what you've done. Have I understood that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's, we're through and through a bootstrap company, so we've never raised outside funding, and we serve future customers based on the profits from past customers and the revenue that they're paying us. So,
Mm.
at the end of the day, like, our costs are very different than a traditional kind of inventory type business. Like, I don't have inventory sitting around,
Hmm.
but I think a lot of when you look at raising funds and so forth, it's the dichotomy of how you're leveraging the business to grow. We've certainly grown slower as a result of that. I think in ways that were both my own comfort zone, as well as in ways that I think change a company's kind of DNA.
Hmm.
When you grow too fast, if I doubled headcount, I doubled our team size this year, like, that's going to impact the way that our team members talk to each other and how they relate to one another and how company culture passes from one to the other.
Hmm.
And I think that those things have to be balanced as you grow a company over the years, or you kind of lose who you are and what makes you special. um I don't know, it's just there's lots of things to think about, but that's just kind of some of the stuff that I've balanced over the years. If I,
Yeah.
at the same time, like, if I went back to the beginning, I ran everything myself for the first 2 years. I didn't hire anyone until we had, it was like 23 or 2400 customers. Like, I
Oh,
have
well.
over 2,000 paying customers. I'm writing code, I'm doing marketing, I'm doing all the customer service. It's basically, during the day I did all customer service, and at night I did marketing, PR, writing new
Hmm.
code, etc. And I look back on it, it was like, that's insane. Why did I do that? But for me, it was like, okay, at what point can I get to a revenue component where I can feel really confident that I can support another person's livelihood?
Yeah.
And at the same time, it was like, well, hiring somebody, like, that's scary. How do I do that? Like, how do I even physically do that? And it's like, it's really not that hard when you look back on it. But as a new entrepreneur and having never done that before, it's like, it's a barrier, and you have to
Yeah,
get
it
through
is.
that.
Yeah.
So
Oh no, it sounds. I mean, I could wax lyrical with you all afternoon. I think about just how you build the business and the learnings from that. I find the whole thing fascinating. It's why between you and me, and I don't think I've mentioned this before on the Ecom podcast, we're launching a second podcast called Push. In fact, by the time this airs, Push will be out. Push to be more, where I just talk to leaders about how they've led. I love it. It's great. The fascinating conversations.
Nice.
We'll have to get you on that one as well. Now. Let's talk about e-commerce because that's why people have tuned in. Really, So you've obviously been around email. Well, you've been around email longer than I've been around I started in e-commerce in 2002. So you've been in email longer than I've been in e-commerce. So
Sent a lot of emails.
Yeah. Have you actually tried to calculate how many emails you have been responsible for being sent?
Oh gosh, it's not quite trillions yet, but it's hundreds of billions. So it's a lot of
crazy.
emails.
It's
So
crazy.
and I like to always make sure that I preface that with it's permission-based emails. We don't send emails that people don't request. So you have to have permission to send emails. So we try very hard to not be part of the spam problem.
Well, years ago, spam wasn't a problem. Obviously, when you first started out, it wasn't. People weren't.
No, I would say it
talking about.
definitely was. Like it's always been a
Okay.
contingent of something that we've had to deal with. There were different rules. Like there was a lack of rules back then. I've always looked at spam and the unsolicited email as taking care of the email ecosystem. If we do things as a platform that trashes the viability of email as a marketing platform or as a communication platform, it's kind of like biting the hand that feeds you, and that expression. It's like, why would I want to make that a useless platform? Because ultimately then businesses aren't going to invest in it. Email has really remained one of the top investments for businesses from a return on investment standpoint. Every dollar gets turned into $34 according to the Direct Marketing Association on investment in email. So it's one of those things that done right, it can be really profitable, can really connect with your users in ways that you just can't do across social and other platforms that are out there. At the same time, like you own your audience. It's like everyone's got every other business's logo on their website these days. It's subscribe to my YouTube, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook, like you name them off. Even now it's follow my podcast on Apple and 14 different platforms. And it's like, as a business, we don't own any of those platforms. If one of those if Twitter decides they don't want you publishing on Twitter anymore, goodbye audience. I can't take my Twitter following and import them into a new platform and continue to communicate with them. Whereas email, you own the email address, they belong to you. You can export them from our platform or any other platform that you're sending those email from and continue to send to those subscribers from a different platform. So if we, for some reason, decide that whatever it is that you're doing is not appropriate on our platform, you can continue to do that somewhere else.
Yeah.
You don't have that same leverage with Facebook. It's very much this, when I go back to, the 90s and the early 2000s, it's the same way everyone was trying to build platform around AOL and getting, people to kind of follow you in that closed ecosystem that was the paywall behind AOL. That was really kind of the leading, a leading indicator of what then turned into all of these other platforms that are out there with Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and so forth, in that you have to play exclusively by their rules. And if you don't, you're gone. And it's as simple as that. And you have no recovery. So it's a balance. And I look at email as something that is more transferable, more ownable, has higher, longer term economics. An email subscriber is worth far more than a Twitter follower, a Facebook follower, et cetera. So
I totally agree, and it's what I mean. I like what you said there. How I was joking or jesting in some respects, saying email. You've been doing email longer than I've been doing e-commerce, and it showed. I wasn't doing Twitter. I wasn't doing Facebook. I wasn't doing. They didn't even exist when I first started out in business, but email did, and email is still by far the biggest return on our investment from a marketing point of view. And it's like people ask me all the time, what do you think about ... and this latest technique or this fancy idea over here? And you go, well, listen, have you got the basics done right? Well, what are the basics? Well, let's talk about your website and let's talk about your email marketing, right? They've been around since the start of e-commerce and they're still here. But obviously email has changed, it's adapted, it's evolved over time. I mean, what are some of the things that you've noticed sort of change in the email marketing world?
Yeah, there's a lot of, overall changes. When I first started, messages were it was just a subject line and plain text. And now
Mm-hmm.
you've got obviously HTML email where you can make, an email have images and, it can look like, a lot of businesses send these brochure type emails. I don't generally recommend most businesses send those.
Mm-hmm.
Use email as more of a personal communication platform than just sending out brochureware. It's what would you want to get from businesses. There's lots of upcoming things that a lot of businesses haven't even heard about yet. There's something called AMP for email, that normally when you send out an HTML email, the content that I write and then hit send on is the content that you as a subscriber receive and see. And no matter how long after you go back and read that same email, it will look the same in your inbox.
Mm-hmm.
AMP for email is actually you've probably heard about AMP when it comes to website load times and
Yeah, yeah.
Google and so forth. It's a protocol that Google originally developed. But what it essentially allows you to do is, as a sender, I can make parts of my email dynamic. So think you subscribe to a stock newsletter and you get they list off different stocks. And when they send that, Google's trading in, I don't even know what it's trading at right now. Let's call it $1,000 a share. Tomorrow when you read it, their shares might be $1,000, $1,020. And AMP for email would allow it to pull in the real-time stock, quote for that. So in the e-commerce world, think of, you send out a promotion for a particular widget and you sell out of that widget. Well, now you've got you've got these emails that you sent to, let's call it 5,000 subscribers. 1,000 of them saw and, went and bought your widget, but then 4,000 haven't opened yet, but you sold out of that widget. With AMP for email, what I could do is I could actually replace that widget A in the email with a widget B, so the other 4,000 that hadn't opened it yet still have the opportunity to see something of value that they could potentially purchase versus clicking on the link and then going, oh, it's sold out. So
That's amazing.
there's some really cool stuff. There's
Is that out yet? For email?
Yeah, absolutely. It's supported on a number of platforms, Google, obviously. And for most e-commerce businesses, that's, a good 40 to 60%, sometimes 70% of a lot of subscribers lists or a lot of businesses lists. And there's other platforms that are building in support for. Yahoo has support for it. And as well as others are in the process of adding it. But that's a really cool technology. We're going to see buying things in the actual email very soon, instead of having to go off to another website to do the actual checkout process. And because it's all validated, because I know I sent it to you as a subscriber, if you already have payment details on file, you could potentially even, accept an order without having to make the user enter a credit card number, because you've already got it on file and it's authenticated that you sent it to that particular recipient. So there's some really, really cool things that you can do.
That is really
We've
cool.
implemented it in a lot of our own newsletters as like surveys. So like when you fill out the survey, you actually click the buttons in the email, and when you hit submit on that, you're still in the email and it shows you the results of, whatever survey that we sent out, and whoever's responded to it so far. So it turns email from what was this static thing into a more dynamic and interactive process. And that's really what is key with email and getting, good results with email, is it all comes back to engagement. And when I think, when I say engagement, that means, whether or not somebody opens an email, whether or not somebody clicks on links and goes to your website in the email. So those are the two, like, as an email marketer, those are the two metrics that businesses often look at as engagement. But there's a lot of other things, if you think past that, Google and Microsoft and Yahoo are looking at that kind of count as engagement. So think, do you forward that email to somebody else? Do you reply to that email? Do you, when you open it, do you scroll down? Is the message bigger than my window? Do I scroll down? When you're reading on Gmail, let me tell you, Google sees all those things. They keep track of all of those things, and that feeds into their algorithms as far as what emails they're going to show you in the future. But it's also setting that kind of engagement reputation for whether or not your messages continue to show up in the inboxes of all the other people that you sent to. Do you then save that email to a different folder or label it in Gmail or Yahoo or wherever it happens to be? So there's all these different kind of cues that mailbox providers get from every interaction with your messages. Do they delete it? Do they mark it as spam, etc.? So there's a lot of things that businesses do that are, when you put that engagement hat on, that are actually hurting that ability to interact. So, how many businesses, particularly in the e-commerce space, have addresses that they send out to that are kind of the what we call them as no reply emails? And I always call those, the middle finger email address.
Because you've got this email, don't ever come back to me. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, give me your money and go yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not how when I get messages in my inbox and it's like, I have a question about something. It's like, oh crap. Like, how do I get this question answered? I gotta go to their website. I gotta figure out how to contact them. Like, just let me reply to the darn email you just sent me. You're in my inbox. It's literally two-way communication platform, and you're just giving me the finger and telling me to go away.
It's the craziest thing. I've never understood, Tom, why people have done that.
It's so common. So it's the give me your money and go away kind of cue, and it's not a good way to build engagement with your audience. It's one of the most simple tricks that a lot of really good publishers, particularly at the smaller level, is when somebody subscribes to their newsletter, particularly in the kind of creator economy folks, are writing based on what their audience's needs are, is, hey, what's your biggest struggle right now? Just hit reply and let me know. And while yes, that's going to generate email volume to you, it's also a great stream of ideas for content for you to write. It's, as an e-commerce vendor, it's potentially great ideas for products that you could bring that you might not have, or it's also great for improving your content on your website by using the terminology that your own customers are using to describe their problems. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that. And at the same time, you're signaling to Google and others that, like, hey, they want my email and they're engaging with what I'm sending, which is really valuable.
So if, I don't know if I'm going too into the detail now. You've got me thinking, maybe I need to set up an email address which says, yes, you can reply to this at whatever.com. But you get the replies from your customers. You send, emails out, and you encourage them to hit reply for all the reasons you mentioned, which are all valid. Does that mean then that Google's going 60-70% of email going through Google? You saying Google are looking at that going, this guy's got a little bit of engagement. People are responding. People are replying. Therefore, does the deliverability of my emails increase?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. When you think about so deliverability means a couple of different things, and it's often misquoted in the marketplace. So when you think about a social platform, if I have 1,000 people following me on Twitter and I post something on Twitter, maybe 10% of those people are going to actually see that, and it'll actually show up in their stream. When I send an email, if I sent that email to 1,000 people, if I only delivered it to 100 people, we'd have a lot of really ticked off customers. So deliverability, there's a component of delivering it to the platform. And those numbers are usually in the 98, 99 percentile as far as, those are all the addresses that are valid. And we've removed any of the addresses that aren't valid, meaning, the address unknown and those sort of things. So that's one component that's often called deliverability. Most businesses, when you're thinking about it as a sender, are thinking deliverability as to what percentage of my mail goes from me to somebody's inbox. And that is whether or not your messages go to the inbox is based on your engagement. And the
Yeah.
more you can have an audience that is highly engaged, meaning they're opening, clicking, replying, filing them away and saving them for later, the more likely your messages are going to continue to go to the inbox. One thing that we often get, particularly from e-commerce merchants, is my emails go to the promotions folder, and they
Yeah.
think in their head like, oh no, it's the spam folder. Promotions folder is definitely not the spam folder. They're two very different beasts.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our e-commerce platform senders that go to the promotions folder, they get better results because they're there versus being in the inbox. Because when people when they look at their promotions folder, they're in a buying mood, versus in the inbox, it's like, well, I want to read my email from Matt, where Matt and I were talking about what we just did this weekend.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of thing. And at the same time, as an e-commerce sender, we often get the question like, well, why is my email going to the promotions folder? And it's like, well, you're sending promotions, so Google's kind of good at what they do. So that's where it goes. And if the content that you send is always promotions, it's always buy. Here's my latest listings. Here's my coupons for my grocery store, whatever it happens to be. You're going to go to the promotions folder. One of the newsletters that I subscribe to, that you could think about as a as an e-commerce sender, it's called the Lift eFoil. And it's a company out of Puerto Rico, and they make these cool, it's like a surfboard with an electric motor on the bottom, and it kind of like flies out of the water. I bought one a few years ago, and I'm on their newsletter as a customer, and they send me product updates. But the reason that I engage with those product updates is because they also link off to YouTube videos and Instagram videos and those sort of things in their emails that are about other customers riding the Lyft eFoil in different parts of the world that are really cool and beautiful, or people doing cool tricks on them that I haven't figured out. So it's like, it keeps me engaged as a customer. And, oh, hey, by the way, they've also got, some new foils or a new motor or something that I can put on it. And I've bought a few of those because it's topical to me. But where does their email go? It comes to my inbox, because it's mostly content that is non-promotional, and it's also content that I engage with. I click those links. It's like at this point, it's like, oh, where are they now? Like, that's really cool. Or what trick am I going to learn this week that I can't do, and I'm going to spend all summer bashing my head trying to figure out how to do it.
So it's not a case then of because there's a belief, isn't there, that sort of floats around, which says if I send plain text emails, I'll go into their inbox. And if I send HTML, I'm going into the promotions tab. That's not right.
No. If you sell things in your plain text message, you're going to end up going in the promotions folder. So,
like you say, Google know what they're doing. They've seen every trick, right?
Absolutely. So, and you've got to understand, they're also seeing all of the content that you're sending in total. So, you'll get, sometimes you'll get businesses that are like, oh, I went to this trade show and I got 1,000 names of people that opted in to receive emails from all the vendors that were at the trade show. And it's like, okay, you were at the trade show. There were about 50 different vendors there. Do you want 50 different vendors sending you emails as a result of having gone to the trade show? No. I know I don't. But these businesses look at it as a shortcut to like gain subscribers. But think about this. So put your Google hat on. Okay, that particular business might have been, let's call it, they were sending to 5,000 people before. And on Monday, they come back from their conference and they have 1,000 names, and they import them, and they're now sending 6,000 people an email. Most businesses don't grow organically by whatever percent that is, 20% overnight. Like, they don't instantly get another 1,000 subscribers. Google knows, they may only see a percentage of that. So let's say they were seeing 2,500 subscribers that you were sending before, and now with this new imported list, you magically got another 500 names. They know that those names have never gotten emails from you before. And they're judging where to send those emails from an inbox perspective based on what the 2,000 or 2,500 were that were already seeing those emails. So if those users were engaging with those messages, those new people might be likely to see them, or they might send them to spam just because it's like, that doesn't look organic. when we look at most businesses growth, it just it's a nice steady uptick of
Mm.
subscribers over time. They don't jump up in big, big jumps. That's not organic, and that is more than likely them doing something that is not permission based and is
Mm.
going to cause problems. So so there's a balance in making sure that as an email sender and as a business, you put your customer hat on and think of what would you like to receive in your inbox. Your emails are not special. The entire planet does not want what you send just because it comes from you. I hate to, that applies to my emails, that applies to your emails, that applies to all of our listeners'
Mm.
emails here. They're not special. We need
They're
to
not.
earn our way into
Mhm.
people's inboxes and earn our ability to stay in their inboxes.
Yeah,
So,
that's such an important. We should maybe change the title of the podcast to "Your emails are not special." I think that's such a valid point. So, what would be some of the tips, Tom, that you would give to an e-commerce business? I'm an e-commerce guy. I'm sat here. I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking this is all great, and I get some of the stuff you're saying. How does that help me when I come to sit down and start planning my email content? What are some of the things that I should be thinking about?
yeah, I think in the e-commerce space, I think a lot of people think about prospecting and like buy, 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 buy now.
Mm.
And most people, most e-commerce vendors get most of their subscribers from new customers. It's very rare, from what I generally see, that somebody comes to an e-commerce website and opts into your email list.
Hmm.
So, usually those opt-ins are coming from your customers, and you're actually
Yeah.
emailing customers. So, going back to like that lift, the eFoil, how can I educate people with the emails that I send about the product that they just purchased from me? Make them better consumers and more educated consumers of the product that they just bought. Make them smart, is what I,
Yeah.
when you make me feel like an expert at doing whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm going to come back to you because you make me look smart. That's a feel good emotion. And
Yeah.
I'm more likely to go back to you again about, buying your products. If you sell me some fancy hair product and you teach me how to use it more effectively than, me going to the grocery store and buying something, I'm more likely to continue to come back to you because you're going to continue to make my life better as a result. And that's where, during that educational process is where you cross sell.
Mm.
Hey, you bought the shampoo but you didn't get the conditioner. Like, what other things can you do? If you're a golf store, like, okay, you bought new clubs, well, did you get a bag for your new clubs, or are you ragging around your new clubs in your old ratty bag? Like, how can you cross sell appropriate things to people? And with tools like, we have conditional content, so I can save what it is that you bought and put content in each email that I send out that is specific to each user. So, it, it's a little more work to do it if you have
Yeah.
hundreds or thousands of SKUs, but if you have a limited number of SKUs, it's easier to personalize the content that you're sending out to people and make it very, very personal and very relevant to each subscriber. Whereas you might have kind of wrapper text around it that's more generic, but then you have something that's specific to each individual user that's going to get that engagement. And even though you're sending a customer newsletter to 1,000 people, there might be 15 different iterations that actually only took an extra 10 or 15 minutes to put together, because it's not hard to do. It's all in one email. As a sender,
Mm.
you send one email, and the back end at AWeber or whatever platform you're using is doing the magic part.
Just figuring
Um,
it all out. That's really interesting. That's sort of scooting back up to some of the things that you mentioned earlier. You talked about, how you'll be buying things soon, directing your email, hopefully. How far
mhm.
away are we from that?
Depending, so it is technically possible now. The tools, I'd say, on the business kind of consumer end of things aren't quite there yet. Like, we don't have something built into our platform to do that yet.
Mhm.
But I see it coming very shortly. So I'd say in the next 12 months, you should be able
Oh,
to do
wow.
that on
Something
the
to watch out for.
easy sign up for a service. Hey, I can send out an email, and
Yeah.
all the transaction stuff just kind of magically works. So the tech is there. It just needs a few more kind of integration points.
Why do you think? I was curious to understand this. You've got in the world of e-commerce, you've got a lot of changes that have happened from a technological point of view, right? Where I think about what e-commerce sites were like back in 2002 to what they are now. And they're poles apart and they're very different. But email, like you say, seems to have been quite static. You know, we went from plain text emails to, oh, I can put my logo and a picture of it. Oh, I can add a picture of a product. But really, has there been sort of any key innovation? I like what you've been talking about with AMP, where you can make it a bit more dynamic. I like what you're talking about with the shopping cart. That all seems quite recent. Do you know what I mean? It seems like it's been static for a while. Do you know why that is?
I would say to a great extent, a lot of that is the dispersed nature of email, in that like no one platform owns email. You know, there isn't a central, you know, Google's probably the closest to it, in that a lot of people have email boxes at Google. So kind of what they do becomes kind of the standard. There's a lot of things that have happened behind the scenes, and platforms like AWeber try to remove that from something that you know, our customers need to think about. So like authentication is a big thing that we do. You know, we push folks to make sure that they're doing what's called DKIM keys. It's DKIM, and that's basically just a way that best way to describe it is it's a way for you to make an entry on your website or on your domain that tells a provider like Google that, yes, these are authorized emails coming from my platform. So it allows it, you know, it prevents people from pretending to be you, from spoofing to be you, which again helps your email reputation as a sender. So we encourage all of our users to sign their emails with DKIM, and we try to make that really easy and kind of walk them through how to do that. Only takes like 10 minutes to do, but it's a good step to do. There are other tools that kind of layer on top of that. There's something called BIMI, BIMI, and that is oh gosh, I should know what it's like brand indicators. I'm blanking on it at the moment. It's Monday. Give me a pass. But basically for everybody that's listening, it basically means the ability for you to put a logo next to your email in the inbox. So before somebody actually opens your email, when you're looking at your email in Yahoo or in MacMail and those sort of things, you'll see that little indicator down the side that'll have your business logo there. And that's it's a way of displaying that outside of the Google ecosystem. So you might see that if you're in Google, you're just seeing the Google kind of avatar. But outside of Google's ecosystem, there wasn't a way for people to do that in an authenticated and secure way. And BIMI is a tool for doing that. So that again is something that we encourage businesses to publish. So there's a lot of things that are kind of behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, like an email's an email. It's a subject line and some body content. And what you send in that, you know, is really up to every business. And I think, you know, trying to make sure that you're sending as personalized content as possible. And that's where the tech, and I think a lot of the changes have come, is how you go about doing that personalization. Whereas before, you know, it was like I had one subject line and one set of body copy, and everybody on my list got exactly the same thing. Now it can be completely dynamic and completely different for literally every single subscriber based on their preferences. And it's not that much extra work for a business to actually send out emails that are that relevant when you've, you know, kind of tagged and you know, segmented your user base over time.
Fantastic. Well, geez, Tom, I'm aware of time, first and foremost, and I'm aware that I've still got 25 questions to ask you. And I guess a lot of people have actually about email marketing, because it has been around since the dawn of e-commerce. And it is still one of those things that people just don't get right. And it's a phenomenal thing. So if people have questions, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can find us at AWeber.com. I'm on all the social places. You can find me on Twitter at tcolzer. You can email me at tomk@aweber.com. And you give AWeber a shot. We have a freemium offering for up to 500 subscribers. So if you don't have a subscribe form on your website, put one. It's a bare minimum. One going away tip here I'll have for everybody: when someone subscribes to your email, if on your confirmation page, after someone enters their email address and hits submit, the page that comes up after that is often this barren wasteland of nothingness. Is like, hey, thanks for subscribing. Put something for your audience to buy on there. So in your case, Matt, put something about your e-commerce cohort on there, so that people have an opportunity to see what else you're doing. If they've just broken out their email address, their credit card is really only one step away from that. And it's not that much farther away. And we often see, businesses that didn't have something on that thank you page generating 10, 20, 30% additional revenue just from that single page, because it gets so much traffic and because those users are so much higher engaged than other people on your website.
Yeah. Top tip. I like that. I'll be checking with our marketing team now. I'm going to go and fill out some forms on our websites. Oh, I wonder what it tells me. Tom, thank you so much for coming on to the e-commerce podcast, man. It's been great to meet you. Great to hear your insight and thoughts. And more than anything, if I'm honest, it's just lovely to hear your passion is still there for email, even after all of these years. And that's actually something quite special. So thank you for coming and sharing it with us on the e-commerce podcast.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Matt. It's been fun.
Oh, no worries, man. No worries. So let's play the music. There we go. Thanks again to Tom for joining me here on the podcast. Listen, if you've signed up for our emails newsletter, one of the things that will be winging its way to you as this podcast goes live is the transcripts and notes from today's conversation. If you don't have that, you can head over to ecommercepodcast.net. You can read it, you can get all the notes, all of the links to Tom and to AWeber and to all that sort of stuff. And of course, you can sign up for our emails newsletter. And let's see what happens when you fill it in. Absolutely, let's have a look at that. Big shout out to today's show sponsor, the ecommercecohort.com. Do head over to ecommercecohort.com for more information about this new type of community which you can join. Be sure to follow the e-commerce podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, because we've got even more great conversations lined up, just like today's with Tom, and I don't want you to miss any of them. And in case no one has told you yet today, dear listener, you are awesome. Yes, you are. It's just a burden we all have to bear. You, me, Tom, just the way it is. The e-commerce podcast is produced by Orion Media. You can find our entire archive of episodes on your favorite podcast app. The team that makes this show possible is Sadaf Bainon, Josh Catchpole, Estelle Robin, and Tim Johnson. Our theme song has been written by Josh Edmondson and my good self. And as I mentioned, if you would like to read the transcript or show notes, ecommercepodcast.net is where you need to head to. So that's it from me and from Tom. Thank you so much for joining us this week on the e-commerce podcast. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.